Welcome back to part 3 of this series on building a sales report with Acumatica, Excel, and Velixo. In part 1, we build a generic inquiry to get the sales data back in Excel. This inquiry will be shared with you in the links of the video. In part 2, we brought this inquiry over to Excel using the Velixo GI function, and we created a pivot table to analyze the data by the various fields and dimensions that we have available. In part 3, we're going to add a filter to restrict the loading of the data to a specific year or to any other filter that you might need. Let's go to the Data tab and insert a few blank lines. So I'm working with the sales demonstration database, which only has a few thousand transactions. Nothing major, but if you're working on a large real-life database, you might have millions of transactions. Loading all these transactions to Excel would be impractical, so I would recommend filtering by date and focusing on the specific date range or the specific branch or a product that you need to analyze. For the purpose of this presentation, I will just filter on the document date column that you see right here. So I will add two fields, from and to, here. And let's say we want everything from January 1st, 2013 to December 31st, 2013. To filter this data, we're going to use the filter argument of the GI function. As you can see here, the filter criteria needs to be in the OData filter syntax. We don't expect you to know anything about OData. And to help you build these filter expressions, we created a special function in Velixo called the GI filter function that will generate the OData filter for you. I just need to enter GI filter, my connection name, and then my inquiry name. So what is it? One sec. It's AR Sales and Analysis. Okay, so let's do it again. GI filter, demo, inquiry name, and then the field name. So it's dog date, and I want dog date to be greater than or equal to the value here, and I want dog date to be less than or equal to the value in B2, and let's press enter. So what you see here in B3 now is the OData filter syntax. You will agree with me that it would have been pretty hard to type that by yourself, let alone try to remember all the different syntax and options available in the OData filter language. So for your convenience, just use GI filter and then take the result of this GI filter function and apply that here in GI. So B3, this is our filter, enter. And as soon as I press enter, it will reload my inquiry, and now we only have transactions from 2013. You can hide this filter here, it doesn't need to be visible. You could actually have GI filter directly here in the formula, but I like to have it as a separate field, and then I just hide the row here, and it makes it easy to view this data. One thing to keep in mind is that after changing the filters here, the pivot table will not refresh automatically. This is standard behavior in Excel when using pivot tables. If you have a pivot table that is linked to an external data source, you will need to refresh the pivot table with the new data. So you just click refresh here, and the pivot table will refresh. Now, as you can see, there's only 2013. So you can see that the changes that were made to the result set here got reflected in my pivot table. You could add to this list of filters anything else. So if you wanted to work on a customer, for example, you could just add the customer filter here, and then you could modify the GI filter to add the customer that is in B1. And right now, since we want every customer, you just need to put a star. So this is a syntax that is expected here if you want every client. But let's say you wanted to analyze Toy Star, you would just type Toy Star here, and this would filter accordingly. So once again, one of the reasons why you will want to refresh is to reduce the size of the data set. If you have a small database, 2,000 transactions, this is fine. But if you're working on hundreds of thousands or millions of lines, then definitely it will take time to load and analyze in Excel. So it will be worth filtering just to reduce that a little bit before it gets extracted from Acumatica. These filters here are actually sent to Acumatica, so we tell Acumatica that we only want the rows that match this criteria. So it reduces the time it takes to extract the information from Acumatica. You could also set up grouping in Acumatica. In my case, I didn't do that, but if you were analyzing by month, you could group instead of having every single transaction listed. You could modify your inquiry here. It's the transactions. Sorry, what's the name again? AR sales analysis. So this transaction, this inquiry here could be grouped by adding our grouping fields in the grouping tab. So we could say that I want to group by month or by date, by customer, by item, and so on. So this would further reduce the size of the data set. But again, this is not an issue here. My database is fairly small, and that may be the case for you as well. If you ever need assistance grouping on something, or like trying to optimize your inquiries, feel free to reach out to us by going to help.velixo.com. You can also simply click Support Center in the Acumatica toolbar, and there's a chat widget here, so you can just ask a question. And although you see my face, it might be Ari or Pavel or Duffy or anyone else from the Velixo team. This is actually accessible to the entire support and services team at Velixo. There's one last thing that I want to look at, and it's the Mac version of Velixo. We have a completely separate product that is designed to let you refresh data from Acumatica the same way that you can do from a Windows device. And we'd like to check that this report will also work just fine on the Mac version. So let's close that and add to my Mac. Finder is here. Let's open Excel for Mac and look for this report. Sample files, sales reporting, here we go. The connection setup in the Mac version is done differently. So there's a side panel that can be accessed by clicking the Velixo button right here. My connection is already set up in the file, so I will just need to log in. I'll click connect, and then I'll check or click refresh all here, and we can see that the inquiry reloaded just fine. Let's just change the year here. I'd like to have 2014 just to confirm that the pivot table refreshes. Let's go here, click refresh, and my pivot table updated. I do see something weird, so let's investigate that. I have one transaction in 2013. Can we double click? Yeah, it says December 31st. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So that may be a time zone issue. Here I said from B2 greater than or equal to. Why does it say December 31st? I have April 1st right here. Not April, January 1st. This is really strange. That may be a workaround for an Acumatica issue that we had a while ago. I'll check if we have the same behavior on the on the Windows version. Yeah, the Windows version does show January 1st as expected. So this may be a temporary issue. Please ignore that. I will discuss with the team and I'll make sure that this filters correctly. So it looks like right now it's doing 1 day before, and I believe this is to work around an Acumatica time zone issue that was recently fixed in Acumatica. But anyway, we can see that the data loads, the pivot table updates, and that this report is also accessible on the Mac version. This would even work on Excel Online now that Excel Online support pivots. You can actually load and refresh this file. So let's see if I can show you the same thing as well. I'll go to sales reporting, and then view online. So this is Excel running in my browser. I have the Velixo side panel. Enter my credentials and hit refresh, and you can see that the pivot table loads, the data loads just fine, and I can also refresh my pivot table very easily. So that's it. That completes creation of a sales report using Acumatica, Excel, and Velixo. I hope that you enjoyed this series. Today we finished by looking at the report on the Mac and adding filters, and I think that there's a lot of useful content for you in this video to help you build your own sales report. But if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out through the help site. Thanks, and have a great day.